It's interesting. The foundation was founded in the 70s, but those of us who worked with Arnold and Mabel didn't realize that there was a foundation. What we knew, it was Arnold and Mabel Beckman making the decisions. The fact that there was a foundation was sort of under the radar. I guess I only realized there was a foundation later. And to me, it was Arnold and Mabel Beckman doing philanthropy themselves. But when Mabel died, that's when he counted on me. And he also counted on Ted Brown. And then the board started, and Harold Brown was a while, but he decided to transition to George Argyros. When I first was interacting with Dr. Beckman, he was very clear that he wanted to spend all this money out in his lifetime and sunset the foundation and not have a foundation in perpetuity, which is what we have now. Because he was very clear. He says, Harry says, if I don't do that, my foundation is going to go in take a direction that I would not approve of. After Mrs. Beckman passed away, we talked him into, you can have so much bigger impact if we do this in perpetuity, because we can support so many young people and on that are going to make such an impact. Let's not miss that opportunity, Arnold. And he said, okay. In order to honor his legacy, and the fact that I'm pretty sure he really believed that in order to support what he wanted to support, which was fundamental science, because he told me time and time again, Harry, the hardest thing to do in this country is to support fundamental science, because there's so much pressure to fund applied work and work that's way down the road from fundamental science. We have to make sure this country has enough scientific capital, and that's fundamental research, in order to have the applications that are so important. You can't have the applications unless you've got the capital, which is fundamental science. And he would tell me that every week. He would say, Harry, here's what I want to support. What he really liked was to support undergraduate research. Research, that's what he considered the education he wanted to support. And so don't give money to administrators, give the money to students. And I'm very proud, of course, that Ted Brown and I started the Beckman Young Investigator Program. That's one of the things I'm most proud of, because that's been fantastic. But I can't take credit for starting the Beckman Scholars Program. That credit goes to Don Shields, a board member who a few years later came to me and said, Harry, I know that Dr. Beckman has told you he doesn't want to support education, but how about let's go down and support undergraduate research? And credit to Ted Brown and me to realize right at that moment that that was a brilliant idea. And Ted and I got on board immediately. And so we put that through, and you know how wonderful that's been. That has been a fantastic program of getting these undergrads. And if you go to the meetings, the wonderful symposia, they just light you up. These kids just light you up, stuff that they've done. So that's one of the best things we ever did. All credit to Don Shields. Then, of course, later, when I became chair of the board, I did one important thing, is that I made the Science Advisory Council really count. Because up until that time, the board really hadn't paid enough attention to it, and in some cases not attention at all, and sort of kept saying, why do we need this? And Ted Brown and I kept saying, we really need the Science Advisory Council. We should be meeting with them. We need to count on them. This is the future of the foundation depends on the strength of the Science Advisory Council. If this foundation has a great future, a large part of it's going to due to the brilliance and the hard work of the Science Advisory Council. And so I also brought them in to really advise the board. For the first time, they made real decisions, and they made, analyze things, and they made the recommendation to start, which is what I wanted, but they made the recommendation to start the Beckman postdoc program. That was the first thing the Science Advisory Council really did that was really important, was to analyze that and come back to the board and said, we should start a Beckman postdoc program. Supporting postdocs in chemistry is super important because there's so much support for postdocs in other areas, but not so much in chemistry. Or in instrumentation, which is brilliant, by the way. A brilliant move that was made later. So very proud of that program. And by the way, that program means that there's not really any wiggle room now in foundation support to support things that Dr. Beckman didn't want to support. And so my message to the board is keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the ball and remember what Dr. Beckman wants to support, which is very clear in his videos and his philosophy statement, which you play at every board meeting. Dr. Beckman looks right at you and he says, I want to support fundamental work in chemistry and biology and related fields. That's what he wanted to do because it's so important to keep fundamental science going in this country because all the pressures are going against. Even the National Science Foundation now is doing more and more stuff that's outside the real fundamental science things. Because if you write a proposal to do fundamental science, people will now say, well, what's that good for? It's good for capital that's going to lead to applications later. The greatest invention in my lifetime has been the laser. The laser has done more for everybody in the world than any other invention I can think of. And it was done by Charlie Towns at Columbia, just looking for something else, just doing fundamental work, and he just happened to find lazy. That's the way most great applications have come by. They've come by people doing fundamental work and accidentally coming across something that made a huge difference in the world. I had looked into the support of young investigators in the United States, and what I had found is that 20% of what I would call the outstanding young investigators were getting all of the support, because when they got one young investor grant, they got all the others as well. It's called the epsilon effect. You get one, and then the next group thinks, well, Joe Blow got that one. He must be better than Sam Tinsley here. And so we'll give him this. And so 20% of the people had all of the support, and all these other people had no support. Ted and I really were the ones who started the Beckman Young Investigator Program. We put it together, we crafted it, we set it up the way we thought would work. We made sure the first people who applied for it would be people who didn't have any other support yet. So we singled those out initially, and so they would get their first support from the Beckman Foundation. And as you know, some of the first ones that we awarded the BYI, some of those have gone on to do incredible things, including 2 Nobel laureates. So we done good, as you might say. And Arnold Beckman really loved it. He would come to those meetings of the BYIs, and he would interact with them, and they would interact with him. And he was in good shape in those days. He was 90 and 91, 92 years old, but he was really in great shape then. And he would bounce it back and forth and ask them questions about what they were doing. And it was really a wonderful period in the Foundation's history, was that opening 3 or 4 or 5 years of the Beckman Young Investigator Program. Young investigators we have supported are working on every important problem in the world right now. Every one. Every problem in energy, every problem in environment, every problem in human health. You can be sure the young people who've been supported by the Beckman Foundation have covered it, all ground. And you know from the Nobel Prizes that we're really big in human health, really big in human health. And from other prizes and other things, we've been big in energy research and environmental research. So I think we were right not to say we're just going to be a foundation that supports cancer research. And we have strayed a little bit from time to time that direction. We strayed a little bit when we decided we were going to have a big vision program and concentrate on vision research. There was a little blip there in the middle where we had the Doheny big thing, and we had the Argyros whatever prize. That was straying a little bit from the main course of the foundation to support fundamental research and be sure that if you support fundamental research in chemistry and biology, related fields, some physics, but the emphasis on the big F in fundamental research, if we do that, we can be sure we're going to have a huge impact in all of these important areas for applied work. We're going to be big time in all these applied areas. So I think building the capital, the scientific capital that we can depend on in the future, is the most important thing the Beckman Foundation can do. We've got the best young investigator program, the one that's viewed as the really gold standard program. I think people emulate us because the way it was set up was really very, very good. And the way it's administered is great. And that's true of all of our programs. They're set up in a way that it's hard for anyone who's not that qualified to get one of our awards, because the way we really vet everything in doing it. And we've got very, very smart people on our review committees and award committees and so forth. And I think the way the foundation, of course, was set up to emphasize giving back. If you've got one of our awards, we're expecting you to give back. And having a lean and mean staff and having all the folks who've been in the Beckman family give back all the time, that's a fantastic model, really. That means you get more bang for your buck than anybody else. Arnold Beckman said, I want to support people. When I support people, I really expect them to give back. That was his philosophy. And it works. That really works. And they love it. They love to give back. Well, I mean, the foundation should, the board members, Science Advisory Council, you guys should be so proud of what the foundation has done, because the impact of the foundation is almost incalculable. When we made this transition from buildings to young people, the impact has gone up exponentially because of these people who have the Beckman name are all over the world now doing great science, and we can be sure that Beckman will never be forgotten for that reason. He could have been forgotten just for buildings. But people make everything, and these young people are all over the world now. Practically every university has somebody who has some connection with Arnold Beckman. So it's an exponential increase in impact. And that we can be really proud of, more than anything else. And so I think the young investigator, the support of young people has to just keep going. That's the best thing we've ever done.